Hello, everyone. I hope you are having a good evening. Thank you, Jess. That means you must hear me. Hello. We'll get started in about 5 minutes. You are welcome in the meantime to do what we traditionally do here as we are getting ready to start a webinar is to share in the chat where you are from, what state you're from. It's always fun to hear what state you're from. This time I want you to add in um, a quick New Year's practice, not resolution, practice, something you're going to work on this year. So tell us where you're from and what that New Year's practice might be. If you want to share, that is, you don't have to. Cold in Virginia. Not stressing as much. Good luck with that. Live in Maryland, but work in Pennsylvania. Oh my goodness. Oh, Reagan, that's a great idea. A bingo sheet of new things to try. I have a coworker who said today in a meeting that he has like 200 and he's going to try 200 and some new recipes this year. And it's already what, the ninth, and he's done 7 new recipes. So I thought that was kind of a cool one too. Not to be so hard on yourself. Good one. That's a common one. Self-love, at least self-like, right, Shelley? Ooh, take on more responsibilities. Not be a pushover. Speak up for yourself. That's a good one too. Me time often. Yes, my husband and I are actually planning our vacation time out. We know how that'll probably go, right? But at least we're trying to take time away. At least we're trying. Actually journeying rather than just plotting it in your head. I get so hard on myself with journaling. So it's yeah, I have to remember I'm not writing a novel, right? I'm just writing. Oh, look at some good ones. Be a better teacher, take a breath before responding. Mental well-being. Well, hopefully this session today will kind of help set you guys off on the right foot. And Lourdes, I notice you're raising your hand, so we keep our microphones off because we are all at home, I hope, or somewhere that is likely loud behind us and to keep distractions at a minimum. We just ask if you could put it in the chat box, your question, if you have one. And then, so if anyone has one, put your questions in the chat box. And then we'll be sure to try to answer those as we're going through. Yeah, there's all kinds of emojis too, so you can put an emoji in. So Diana's having issues with the last 3 certificates. Um, yeah, it may not be in your trash or spam, Diana. Depends on your email. So some emails, if it's a proprietary or work email, they do sometimes block emails that are sent in bulk from outside organizations. If it is not, if it is an Outlook, an AOL, a Yahoo email, they're likely blocking it because it is a bulk email that's being sent, and they're very, 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 very picky about that. So you might have to go in and allow emails to be sent in the settings for your email system. If it is a Gmail, it is very likely, and I can tell you this from experience now, very likely that the email has gone to one of the alternative email folders, and that's not junk or spam. Yes, you have a junk or spam, but it is from it goes into the promotions folder or the social folder. Those are alternative folders that your Gmail sorts your email into. So if you're ever missing email, it is very likely that they go there. My daughter and her husband, now husband, got married in October, and the emails from the organization that we were working with that kind of helped us with the photography and the videography, the emails that we've been sending emails to each other for the past year, no problems. The emails that talked about the photos and the video, guess where they went? They went to the promotions email box. So I kept asking her to resend, 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 and she was, and she was, and she was, but I wasn't getting it until I looked in the promotions email folder. Um, yeah, and opt online, it may also, any of the unusual email servers. Okay, so anything that is not a typical Gmail or Comcast, things like that, they are likely to have very strong filters and they will take your email. Actually, all emails are doing this now, Gmail as well. They will take your focused emails and they will send those to you. And then everything else will get filtered into different folders. You may not even realize you have these folders until you go on your computer to see your email. That's when you'll find those additional folders. So it's somewhere to look. If not, if you still are having a hard time, I can look it up in the system, but I need you to email me. I will not be checking this feed to find out who needs certificates, okay? Certificates, and we'll talk about those in a minute for everyone that's new, but I will be not checking this feed or this chat feed for that, just because it's just too hard. So if you are having issues with your certificates, you can send it to my email and I can take a look for you. But I do ask that you look at all those other alternatives too, so that it doesn't keep happening for you. So it is 7:31, so we're going to jump in and get started. So I want to welcome everyone to our webinar series, our ECE webinar series. My name is Mary Muhs, and I am your facilitator today, as well as your host here. I am the Dean for the School of Education here at Rasmussen University, and I'm really glad you're here. This is the first one of a 2025. Every time I say that or write it, I freak out a little bit because it feels like it was just 2000. And that was 25 years ago. Nuts. Time is just this thing that is really hard to get your head around. But I'm really glad that you guys are here tonight to start off your 2025 in a really productive and self-supportive way. Let me give you some brief information to get us started as people still funnel in. And then what we'll do is jump into the presentation. So I can't do these without sharing a little shameless plug about our ECE degree programs. So we do at Rasmussen University offer a fully online associate degree and bachelor completer degree, which is like a 2+2 program, where if you already have your associate's degree, you can come into Rasmussen and complete your bachelor's degree without having to start over, which is really exciting. We also do offer a CDA prep training class, which is just training, not a degree. You're not enrolled in the university, just a chance to get some of the classes taken that align to the CDA credential educational requirements. So that may be something to look for. I encourage you to stop by our website when you get an opportunity and check out our early childhood programs, as well as our other programs too, in health sciences, business, nursing, technology, design, and lots of programs within those schools. But it's rasmussen.edu, rasmussen.edu. And if you have any questions, you're always welcome to reach out to me as well. You are in a Teams classroom or Teams room for Microsoft Teams. It's not perfect by any means, but it is a great space for us to gather. You have been muted to avoid the background noise and the distraction that comes along with you likely being at home. And then that way you don't have to worry if someone walks in to your space while you're on the call, or if your kids are on your lap or your dog or whatever. No cameras are needed because of that same reason. I don't want you to feel intimidated by not turning or having to turn on your camera, because likely you are comfortable. And you should be. And so we don't have to worry about that. I'm leaving mine off tonight too, because we've had a lot of bandwidth issues today. At least it seems like it. So I'm just leaving it off just to protect that. I know there's storms going on in different parts of the country and things, it'll just maybe help things be smoother. If audio is not working, I highly recommend that you log out and log back in. So if you're hearing me now, thumbs up. Awesome. If by chance during the session you don't hear from me and you know that things are moving on, try logging out and logging back in again. Okay, that's usually helps. And because we track your attendance through the back end, through your link that you use to join us, you don't have to worry. It should track it all for you. If you have any questions or comments during the session or answers to questions that I give you or participation, you are welcome to enter it all into the chat. We're not doing hand raises because we're not going to unmute anyone. It's just too hard with background noise. But put your questions in the chat and I will do my very best during the session to answer your questions as we go, or at least at the end. You can also use emojis. I see everyone is using them already, which is awesome. They're kind of fun. There's two different buttons at the top of your screen. There's the raise your hand. We're not going to use the raise your hand feature tonight, okay? Because that usually means that I'm supposed to call on you. And then there's the react button, and that's the little smiley face guy. That's your emojis to react. And when you do that, it'll show it right over your little box that your name is in. If you do want to use emojis in the chat, you can see a couple people have started to. There is a way for you to do that right there in the chat box. I see you guys practicing. That's awesome. They're just fun to use. I mean, really, they really are. So we hope that you are able to participate, share your thoughts, your ideas, your questions during the session. We would love to hear it. It says, can't display content. I wonder, there might be some, yep, so exactly, Reagan. Troubleshooting is the key to Teams. It depends on the device you're using, and it depends on whether you're using a computer, whether you're using a phone or a tablet. Things do work a little bit differently. So you may not have all of these capabilities. I hope you do, but you may not. We still track you behind the scenes, so you don't have to worry about that. But sometimes it does take a little bit of troubleshooting depending on the type of device you're using. So just keep trying, and it should get there. So, whoops, the question that everyone always wants to know is, yes, you do get 1 hour of in-service awarded to you for your participation in the session. You do have to be in the session, logged in and participating for at least majority of the session, which typically means I go by how long it takes me to do the intro, which typically means you should be in session at least 45 minutes. If you are not in session for at least 45 minutes, you likely will not get a certificate. So that's why it's really important that you do get into the session as early as you can, not too early. There's nothing to do before it starts. So get here early and then go ahead and participate and be engaged in the session for that whole time. Yeah, Heather, and sometimes the app is a little tricky on the phone. It's a great thing to have. I do many meetings on my phone in my car, but it is a little trickier when it comes to a PowerPoint. It depends on how it is shared. If I'm sharing my screen, it may work a little bit better, but I typically with PowerPoint don't share my screen. I share the PowerPoint itself. So sometimes that does make things happen a little different. So your 1 hour of in-service will come in a certificate, which will look very similar to the one in the picture. The certificate will come to you within 48 business hours of this session, which typically means by the end of the night Monday. They will often go out Friday afternoon, if you're wondering, but just in case there's glitches, we'll say Monday night at the end of business. Certificates are sent to the email provided at registration. So if that is an email, like I mentioned earlier, that is an email for a business like your childcare program. It is likely your childcare program will block that email being sent because it's sent in bulk. So it is possible that you may not get it. Or it might go to a alternative email folder. This often happens in emails these days. They will sort, the email automatically sorts, you know, that thing called AI, automatically sorts things and says, this is an email you want and this is an email you don't want. Well, it seems to think that any email sent in bulk is one you don't want. So it'll put it in something called spam, junk, or social. Google does this, or Gmail does this one. Social or promotions, assuming that that's what it's for, right? That they're promoting a product, they're promoting a service, that kind of thing. So it will sometimes go there. So you'll want to check all those folders. which you likely can only do by a computer, not by your phone. So keep look out for all those things. If you don't get that email with the certificate by the end of the day on Monday, then you can certainly email me at my work email, which I'll show you at the end of the session. Um, so that you can jot that down if you need to. Do note that it is not an attachment. It is not an attachment. It is actually linked in the body of the email. So when you read the email, it'll say something, something, something certificate. Click there, and then your email, it should pop it up for you as a document. Okay. You must, or I said that already, you are responsible for submitting your certificate yourself to your training organization. We do not submit them on your behalf. We have not, purposefully have not gotten any of these trainings approved by any training organization in any state. And we did that on purpose because it is really hard to do that in 50 states on a monthly basis. And the people doing this webinar series is typically me. So I just don't have the bandwidth to do that. And many states don't require it. There are a few that have started to require it or have some other stipulations, but it is up to you to make those submissions to your state registries if that's something that you're doing. All right, I already introduced myself, but I'll say hello again. I am Dr. Mary Muhs. I am the Dean for the School of Education. Sometimes I'll say early childhood education because it's the only program that's in the School of Education. Nope, I didn't have a different name last year. Nope, it's always been the same. I've haven't gotten remarried, married differently, or anything of that nature. My title does change frequently. I will tell you that. I have been a program coordinator, a department chair, a program director, a yeah, a department chair again, an associate dean, a dean. So that might be fooling you, because that just they seem to be recorrecting how they see us within our in our organization. So I am back to dean. I was dean back in 2014. Now I'm back to dean again. It might be the doctor. Thanks, Joni. Good to see you. It might be that too. Absolutely. That happened to me in 2022. All right, let me get to my presentation here. Got to find it first. Oops. Maybe. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do that because I think that might work better. Let me. Oh, good. Okay. See if that did it. Nope. So I'll just do it this way. Oops. Keep doing that. Want to click on the wrong one all the time. The challenge with this is it's hard to see the chat. So let me try one more thing here because I want to be able to see your chat. Otherwise, it's just not the same. Marysville. See, there's a whole town named after me. How cool is that? How cool is that? There's actually a resurgence in the name Mary being a baby name, which I thought was exciting because there's always wanting, we always wanting people to use your name, right? When they're naming their child or they're doing things like that. But yet sometimes it just doesn't come up because your name is unusual or it's pronounced or spelled differently or something of that nature. And then you end up not having it accessible. And then suddenly everyone's using it and it comes with some kind of addition to it. as well. So it'll come with like a Rosemary or Mary Rose or Mary Lynn or Mary something like that. Um, I'm trying to figure out why my power, I'm going to have to do it by sharing my screen. It was all prepared. Try one more time. All right, wish me luck. That's going to do it. And recognize that it needs me to share it. Yay! All right. Oh my goodness, that was unusual. All right. Thank you for the luck too, by the way. I'm sure that is exactly what happened. So, what is reflective practice anyway? That's what we're here today to learn a little bit about. And it's one of those things that you hear a lot. You hear the terminology a lot, but you don't always know what that means, right? So today we're going to define what like the basic structure and process of reflective practice is. Okay, we're going to be very basic. And then we're going to learn some ways that we can incorporate reflective practice into everyday teaching, into what we do every day with our children, or even for our own personal use, because reflective practice is something that should become very natural for all of us once we start using it. So first I want to find out is what do you know about reflective practices? Share it in the chat for me. I'd love to understand what you know. Great for parenting too. Yes, Joni, you're right. So what is reflective practice? What do you know about it? Maybe nothing. That's okay. That is okay. Maybe you are a pro at it and should be teaching the session instead of me. Maybe. Maybe you know a little bit because you hear the term, you hear the words, but you're not really sure what that means. Feedback, great idea. Couple of nothings. I'm glad you're being honest. Don't know enough to say. That's also very honest. Thinking through how the day went and what you might change. That's a great addition. Being able to think about what you've done, what went well during a lesson or the day, something for me to learn every day. Looking back on teaching strategies. Some people it's totally new, right? But yes, just just in the title alone, you can probably guess, right? I mean, take a look at this beautiful watercolor that shows this beautiful tree and the reflection, which we assume is in the water, right? It is a reflection. You're looking back at, thinking back about. You guys are right on target. So there's a good balance in the class of people that know or have an idea and people that are totally new to this, which is totally cool. I'm really glad that there is a good balance because it really makes it the session so much better. Now, a couple of you are telling me that you cannot type in the chat, and that's very possible depending on the permissions of the computer or the system or the tool that you are using, the device you're using. So you can keep trying. You can see if there's another way to do it. Someone said being in the app works. Someone else said being out of the app works if you're on your phone or your tablet. It might just be permissions of the computer that you're using too. So don't worry too much. We track all of your participation behind the scenes. So this is a great quote that really truly is the essence, in my opinion, of what it means to reflect, okay, and be reflective about your work. All you can ever teach is yourself, right? That's really what reflective practice is. It's really teaching yourself, looking back, reflecting, and then changing or adapting or repeating behavior based on what you've seen in your work, right? Um, Reflective practice also says we do not learn from experiences, we learn from reflecting on those experiences. This is a quote back from John Dewey. He's kind of familiar name, isn't he? Um, he was a theorist for child development and early childhood education way back, one of our, well, not way back, but back far enough. I guess when it's 25 years since 2000, I guess it's really far back. But he was a theorist that helped us understand how education fit in with young children, very basically, without going too deep. Yes, I love that quote, Denise. Good one. Many people err by comparing themselves to others instead of comparing themselves to what they were yesterday and what they can become tomorrow. So if we look a little bit more about what reflective practice is, it is examining experiences to improve your practice. There you go, right? You examine how you work with situations, how you work with people, how you work with each other, how you work with other aspects of your job. So if you were working at a bank, you could still do reflective practices because you'd be looking at how you interacted with the customer, how you completed reports, how you interacted with your peers and did teamwork. For an early childhood program, you might be reflecting at that interaction and that communication you had with a family. You might be talking or thinking about and reflecting on that interaction or that activity you did with a child. So it's a way of really examining how you work with others and other situations. And you really use those experiences to learn and grow. It is also ongoing. Okay, reflection isn't just a one and done thing because you're never the same moment to moment, right? You don't ever interact with a child the same, the day to day, minute to minute, activity to activity, same thing with parents. So you're always wanting to reflect back on what you did or didn't do and how you could change or continue to do that same thing. It is a process and an end. Oh my gosh, you're good, Denise. You're good. You're good. It's a continuous thinking process. And really, you might think when we're going through this, gosh, this is a lot to think about. But once you really start employing reflective practices in your day to day, you will suddenly find yourself going, well, wow, that went really well. I wonder why that went so well. Boy, I was really feeling good when I was in that situation. Oh my gosh, how can I do that again next time? It just becomes natural for you and something that will become very much kind of like on automatic for you. There are many, whoops, this keeps doing this for me. There we go. Benefits of reflective practice. So there are really good benefits, obviously, or we wouldn't be here talking about it. But the first one I think is really the most important, and that's an raised sense of self-awareness. The developmentally appropriate practices position statement issued by NACI several years ago, the updated one, really talked about the fact that we as adults in the room interacting with the children are just as integral to the curriculum, to the communication, to the environment, to the atmosphere, to the child's learning and development as anything that they do, right? And it is oftentimes our own feeling, our own reaction, our own sense of self that reacts and interacts and causes things to happen or not happen, right? So it's really, we have a big influence in what happens in the classroom setting or in your group childcare setting. We have a really big influence on that. And a lot of it comes from things that we don't even really know up front, right? Like I can't really tell you, but it's something that I could look at a behavior interaction I had with a child and I could be like, wow, that reaction came from where? Wow, I remember back when I was 2 and this happened to me, and that's where that reaction came from, right? It's a little extreme, but you kind of get the idea that all of our interactions and our belief systems and our feelings and our values come from somewhere, and they are influenced by our background and our experiences. And so sometimes those experiences and that background then influence how we take care of or interact with the children. A greater understanding of our practice. So the more you reflect, the more you will understand what works and what doesn't work, right? What works and you want to continue to do, and what doesn't and you want to stop doing and change, right? And absolutely, the kids pick up on your energy. So that's really energy and lack of energy, right? Definitely. It's also an improvement in your own area of practice. So it's a way for you as an individual, not as one of a group, but you as an individual to be able to improve on your own practice, your own work with children, right? It is a way that you can use your own strengths and develop your own areas of improvement in a professional manner. Okay. And it's also kind of private and personal. So it's something you're likely as an adult learner to tackle with a little bit more initiative and gusto because it really affects you. Without reflection, we go blindly on our way, creating more unintended consequences and failing to achieve anything useful. Wow, that's kind of a slap in the face, isn't it? That's kind of a whoa. So hopefully, if you can't see any slides, I'll answer this question. It is possible you might need to log out and log back in. You also might need, if you're on a computer, you might need to make sure that your slides are synced to mine. Sometimes when you click on things, things get off sync and it pauses stuff. So if you hover your mouse over the where the slide should be, then if that's the case, it will say sync to presenter, and then you can sync to me and you'll be at the slide that I'm on when I'm on it. Otherwise, you might have to log out and log back in. So the biggest thing that we can do when we're looking at reflection is start with self-reflection, okay? Really understand where I come from, how I made it to where I am today, and what I value and why. It is a way for us to understand our own values, what we value, why we value it. It's a way for us to understand our biases. I really don't like ice cream with nuts in it. That is just not my thing. But I'm a really big chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry fan, but not with nuts. So very easy, simple bias, right? I'm biased against ice cream with nuts, and I'm biased for chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry, and a little bit of butterbrickle because those aren't nuts. Well, I guess maybe they are, depending. But see? So understanding where you come from and why, what might have influenced that decision to say that I'm really into plain chocolate, strawberry, and vanilla might be from when I was a kid and my mom and dad used to buy Neapolitan ice cream. I don't know if you remember that one with the strawberry, the chocolate, and the vanilla in the same little box of ice cream, because that's what we used to have. And I used to love those because I could have a little bit of each one. And that was really fun. But one day they went and bought Spumoni ice cream. Now I'm Italian, so Spumoni is like a big deal. But I really didn't like the pistachio ice cream. That did not do me well. So I was really frustrated. And that's when I was determined I can't really like ice cream with nuts. Right? Now, that's a pretty benign bias that I have. But sometimes we have, a little bit stronger biases. Perhaps we make a very big affront when a child stares us in the eyes, right? And tells us something. Maybe they say no to us, right? Maybe it's a child who pulls hair and that just really, gets your goat, right? You're like, that just really frustrates you. Or maybe it's when, children roll their eyes, right? Those kinds of things can send you a little bit off your rocker, right? It might be like, oh my gosh, these kids are so disrespectful and stuff. That might be a personal bias of yours, a personal value that you have that's influencing how you see the children, right? And how maybe quickly you react or don't react to that interaction. A few people that aren't so sure about Spumoni either. So yeah, yeah. So looking at our own and understanding where we come from can really give us insight into how and why we feel about something, how or why we react to something, and how or why we make decisions that we do. And so what makes you? I mean, we could talk about this guy forever. Yuri Bronfman-Brenner and the ecological systems theory really talks about how our little community that's right around the individual, child, adult, what have you, when you're right around that person, that's your very small, tiny little sphere of influence, right? But then your microsystem gets a little bit bigger and you've got the influence of your family and all of those values and all of those biases and for and against things. You've got work, you've got school, you've got your siblings, right? You've got your extended family, right? And then you've got your mesosystem, which goes a little bit farther out. And that's really your extended families, your cousins, your uncles, maybe extended siblings, step siblings. You've got a little bit more. Then you've got your neighborhood and you've got your parents' work environment, right? Which influences you. You know, your parents are working full time or maybe extra hours. How does that influence your belief system in parents working versus being home with their kids? I mean, all of this influences why you think the way you do and why maybe that child rolling their eyes at the lunch table really upsets you and really makes you frustrated as far as respecting adult authority, right? When it's really probably not too big of a deal and it's something you can address, but maybe that day it just really sets you off, right? Because that day maybe something else happened that reminded you internally, right, of that situation or that belief system. So it's just really understanding how you feel and why you feel about things that are going on around you. So reflection was, why did this skip? It keeps skipping slides. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm like missing slides. Here we go. The other thing you want to do with reflection, so is that you really want to embrace a growth mindset. Okay. There's almost nothing that you can do that is perfect. Sorry, hate to tell you that, because a lot of our actions and interactions are subjective. They're based on perception and different perspectives. You might think what you said was perfect, but then the way that person received it might have been influenced by their background, their biases, their thinking, their perspectives and perceptions. And so they don't receive it the way you think you deliver it. And then you know how all of that goes. So embracing a growth mindset with reflection means that you're ready to try new things. You're ready to do something different. You're okay with the fact that you might need to change some of your behaviors, your perspectives, your habits, or the way you're thinking about things. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's actually part of being a lifelong learner. And that's really something we want to strive for in early childhood education because our kids are not static beings and they will grow and change. And we want to be able to grow and change right along with them. So let's look a little bit at what reflection like is, like practically is, like when you do it and why. So when you are thinking about reflection, right? It's nice, it's a nice thing, right? And you think, I'm going to hold this mirror up. Did anyone remember seeing Romper Room when you were a kid? I'm really dating myself because I was really little when this was on, but she'd take this mirror that was like a hole in the middle rather than the mirror reflective glass, and she'd look at all the people, which was totally the camera, and she would say, you know, I see Susan, I see Mark, and then, yep, romper room. And I don't even remember anything else about the show. Really honest. I just remember the end when she'd hold up this mirror and she'd call, and when she called your name, you were like, she saw me, even though she was just picking names. Anyway, but you know, you're always, that's my vision when I think of reflective practices, holding up a mirror to myself, right? I'm holding up a mirror to myself and I'm looking in it and I'm seeing what is coming back at me. But reflection can take place in over three times or three different settings. Okay. So reflection in action, reflection on action, and reflection for action. So reflection in action means you're in the moment right now. That child is going to bite the other child and you've got this thing going on, right? And maybe you're moving a child away and you're helping the child that's been bitten. Your reflection in action, where suddenly you go, whoa, wait a second. How did this get out of control? Right? What do I need to do? And you're suddenly your brain kind of puts the stop on your thinking and your action and says, okay, what do we need to do here? What is going on? What do I need to do to help this situation, right? How did this get this way so that I can stop it and I can not reverse it because I can't reverse time, but I can, you know, help it go a different direction, right? Or I can help it continue to go the same direction depending. We are old, Laura. Yeah, I know. It's depressing. So reflection in action is when you're in the moment, okay? You are in the moment. A reflection on action is later, okay? So maybe after the situation happened and you guys are sitting down, the kids are napping, and you're like, Oh my gosh, you're talking to a coworker and you're like, boy, that was really tough. What happened? Boy, when I got in this morning, I was sure on edge. I'd had a rough morning. My car didn't start, blah, blah, blah. I'd taken Uber to work and, it was a mess. And, so I was really edgy already. And boy, when that little one did that, boy, I just, got so upset and I didn't mean to react that way. And I felt really bad. That's a reflection on action, meaning you did it already and now you're looking back at it. Okay. And you're looking back at it to see, boy, that activity, that went really, really well. Like I was not anticipating that those kids would want to do that for 40 minutes. Wow, that was really amazing. I wonder what happened to make them want to do that. What did we do different? What did we do the same? What do we need to do again next time? So they do that same activity again. We need to do that again. So this is a way for you to kind of think back and think about how you did. Okay. Now, reflection for action is really the second step, in my opinion, to reflection on action or inaction. Because reflection for action is really acting in advance. So it's really you planning ahead, right? Reflecting on something and then planning ahead so that maybe that activity, that action, that interaction can either happen again because it went really well, or it can happen differently because you're now planning for it in advance, right? You're reflecting on it and you're reflecting for action so that the next time it occurs, you're like, I know exactly what I'm going to do when this happens again. I'm going to act this way. I'm going to say this and we're going to do this. That way you can kind of think through what might work. You might even think through and say, boy, if we do this, this might happen. Oh, that's not a good idea. Maybe we need to do this instead. You can think through the actions, right? You can think through, boy, if that happens on that day, that's the day that that little one goes home early and we might need to think about this and that. It's a way for you to kind of reflect in advance and plan ahead, and think through all of your options. So there's the three ways to reflect. Most of the time, you're going to reflect on action because something's going to occur that either went really well or went not so well. And you're going to want to think about it. One, because we do that. We dwell on things that don't go well. And then you want to not have that happen again, right? You want to do something different so it continues it in a better way. I always say that it's important to reflect on action when things go well too, because you want things to go well again the next time you do that. So when an activity goes particularly well, like I mentioned, maybe that, using those little oh my goodness, I can't remember those little pipe cleaner dispensers where you can suck up the water and then what are those things called? You suck up the water and then you put it onto the ice and you've got, dinosaurs buried inside the ice and you've got colored water and you're trying to melt the ice to find, to release the dinosaurs and the kids are like really into it. Pipettes, thank you. I knew someone would know. The kids are into it and they're helping each other and they're trying to get out the dinosaurs. Maybe you've got a game going, how fast they can get the dinosaurs out of the ice and which dinosaur can you get and just who knows what you've created, but it's been very successful. And the kids are learning all about things that are cold. They're learning dinosaur names because that's what they do. And maybe they're even, thinking about what they could put next in the ice and bury in the ice for the next time. Maybe they're counting how many pipette droppings it takes to melt the ice. Whatever you're doing, it's going very well. So you reflect on it and say, wow, what did we do that went so well? Right? How did that happen? What happened that made it popular? What happened that made the children so engaged? And how can we do that again with that same activity again or with another activity in the future? But all three ways of reflecting are really very important. Now, reflection is a cycle. Okay. Talk about the planning cycle. You might have that as something that you remember from your college courses, that talks about how you plan. You kind of observe something and then it's very similar to the cycle of reflection where you kind of, plan, do, and review and then plan, do, and review again, to make it simple. The cycle of reflection is very similar, but a lot of this happens in your head without a lot of intention. But if you plan to reflect on your practice, you need to make it intentional so that it becomes something that is very easy, but very complete. So description, what happened? Someone give me a scenario of what happened. Description of what happens. Give me a situation, something that happened at your workplace. It's hard to pick one, right? There's probably a lot of things that happen in your workplace. There's a thumbs up for that one. Two children fighting over the same toy. Perfect. So two children fighting over the same toy. So that's what happened. So two children were fighting over the dump truck. We have one dump truck, two children fighting over the dump truck. And maybe one child takes a block and whacks the other child on the side of the shoulder, right? To get the block, right? Or to get the truck. So that's what happened. Then you think immediately, what are the feelings I'm feeling as I'm watching this child or stopping this child from this interaction with this truck? Right? What am I feeling? Maybe I'm feeling a little bit like, oh no, right? I mean, a little panic, right? A little frustration. Oh my gosh, this happens all the time. Maybe a little bit of concern and worry that that child who got hit with the block on the arm is going to have a bruise now, and now I got to write up an accident report, right? So think about your feelings. What are your feelings? Now, what was good or bad about that experience? Obviously, the two children fighting was probably not so good, right? But what was good about that experience? What was good about that experience? Is there anything? What did you learn? It's an opportunity for learning for them, right? Learning, maybe giving them some language to use. But did you maybe figure out that that toy is really popular and you only have one? Maybe you need to get more trucks. You got it, Angela. Maybe you need more trucks. So you learn. So there's something good. There's almost always something good that you learn. Okay. It may not be good in the sense of like Glinda good, but it might be good to learn that. So then, what sense can you make of the situation? Well, the sense I can make is that we have this block area. The kids are very engaged. These two boys are very physical anyway. These are like two physical kids. They're very active, and they are really enticed by this truck. They want to put all their blocks in it and take it for a trip somewhere. They want to, play with it, but they don't want to share. Okay, they're four. Then toddler's not going to likely share. So that's kind of your sense that you can make of the situation, right? So what else could you have done? Think about what else you could have done in the situation. Well, when it happened, I ran over there right away and I grabbed the block so that the one child couldn't continue to hit the other. So I did that. And then I, sat down between them and I tried to think, you know what, I probably could have at that time, I probably could have brought them over to a different spot so that it wasn't like so distracting right there because one of the kids really wanted to play with the blocks. And so I was trying to like focus them and I couldn't. So maybe that, right? Maybe I could have had them talk a little bit more, right? Advocate, as Joni says, for themselves. I want that truck. I want that truck. Well, now what are we going to do? You both want that truck. What could we do instead? How are you both going to play with the truck? That could be a possibility. Now, an action plan, if this situation arose again, well, the other thing I'm going to do is I'm also going to go get a new truck. So there's at least two trucks. There should always be two of the major things in the room. Always. If it arose again, what would you do? What would you do if it rose again? What does anyone think they would do if it rose again? I might be more verbal. I might say, hey, let's stop. Let's talk about this. Make us a couple steps out of the block area. What do you want to say? Do you want to say, I want this truck? I want this truck. Set a timer for using the truck. Remove the truck. That's an option, but is it going to solve the problem? Probably not. Using a timer, that can help too. You might be able to ask them, what are some choices? Would you like to use the timer? Would you like to use this? How would you like to do this? So think about how you can do it again the next time. Now, if you're thinking about, well, the first thing I do is I definitely take the truck out. What would happen if you took the truck out? Would it solve the problem? The problem is the kids both want to play with it. So if you take the truck out, you're probably going to disappoint two children who want to play with the truck. So you're going to have to either redirect them somewhere else, or you're going to have two screaming children or upset children that wanted to play with the truck. So you kind of start thinking through, well, if I do that, then that you reflect on what happens if you take away the truck, right? So this cycle of reflection continues, right? Because then if it happened again and you do whatever you thought you'd do, then you can say, now what happened? And then you can start the whole cycle again, right? I like that, Joni. You're kind of robbing them of the opportunity to practice problem solving. And absolutely in a very low stakes environment, right? Because the world is not going to end if they don't each get to play with the truck. They might think so for that second, but it's real easy to distract them. But if you don't even get them the chance to figure out how to do it, it does kind of make it like you're taking away an opportunity for them. All right. So then you need to choose your methods for reflecting. Now, there's lots and lots of ways to do this. You could do this all in your head, kind of like how I was doing, right? You could do this all in your head where you're just thinking things through. The benefit of that is that you can do that in action pretty quickly. You can do that on action right after it happens. And you can do that for action without a lot of stuff, right? You don't have to have pens, paper, all that kind of thing, or any extra time, except for maybe just a couple of minutes, right? To think that through. But it's really important to think through multiple ways to reflect on your practice. Okay. So the first one is to ask yourself daily questions. And these can be questions that you ask yourself in your head, or it can be things that you write down. Okay. You might write down your thoughts of these things in the morning before you go into work. How am I feeling about today? Maybe you know that today's your highest day enrollment wise. Everybody's there and it's a Monday, right? We all know, and it's the Monday after a long holiday weekend, right? We've been there, right? So we know. And so that might be, you might be dreading that. So I'm a little bit depressed about that. I'm a little bit scared, a little nervous, a little anxiety. What might be influencing how I'm feeling about that day? These kids have had a crazy, happy time with their family and friends, and they don't want to go back to a group childcare setting, right? They're going to miss their mom and dad or their family members that drop them off each day, and they're going to be sad, right? And so they're going to be more touchy, more sensitive, maybe more tired, maybe more hungry, all those things. So, how might those feelings affect the day, right? Thinking that through in advance. How is it going to affect the day? I already know it's going to be this way, but stating it out loud, writing it down can really make a difference because then at the end of the day, or even in the middle of the day, you could ask the reflecting questions. What went well today? What happened for the day to go well? What didn't go so well today? What might have influenced those challenges, right? How am I feeling today? Right? Maybe at the end of the day, you're actually feeling pretty good because it wasn't as challenging as you thought it was. And why is that? Right? What did I do different that made it so it wasn't so challenging? So I can remember that the next time one of these days comes around. So purposefully asking yourself these questions makes it an intentional practice, which will really help ground it in you so it becomes natural. Keeps doing that. Of course, then there's journaling. It's a natural extension of asking yourself those daily questions. You can write them all down. You can just write words down. You can be a thankful journalist, writing down all the things you're thankful for every day. You can also write down all the positive things that happened that day. Everything from, boy, the sun was shining, it was above 10 degrees. I got to wear my new boots, to, all 20 children were in my preschool room today. One parent was upset because their child got bitten and a mouse was in my room. Those could be the things. And it could just be simple, or it could be more drawn out and more elaborate. Depends on how you like to journal. I have a trouble journaling because I always want it to be more like a novel, right? Or written like a book. And so I get really frustrated when I can't come up with just the right words or just the right phrase or just the right description. So if you can journal, all the better for you. But I really do like the way of using these questions as your journaling prompts. I think those would be great for you at the beginning and the end of the day. And Joni mentioned bullet journals. Yep, bullet journals are very positive so that you just little snippets of things. The other thing that I really, really encourage you to do is find blogs So find early childhood educators, maybe even some really astute and creative parents that are creating all kinds of great content online. These might be professional organizations too. They might be through Facebook. They might be on the web through their own web page or through their own website or even on YouTube. And these blogs are other people writing about and doing things that are happening in their environment. So sometimes they're even early childhood programs. So there's a couple that I follow that are particularly Reggio Emilia type of focus. There's some that I follow that are very nature-based preschool. And I love to see their posts because immediately I start thinking to myself, wow, how do they do that? What could I do in my space to do that? How could I make that happen for my kids in my space? And they are so beneficial. And there's usually some very productive chat going on, people sharing how they've incorporated those things into their and how they've reflected on their use of those materials. It is really, really helpful. So I encourage you to seek those out on Instagram. Is a great place to start. Facebook. But then, like I said, go to once you start going to one, you'll start going to many. The algorithms will do their job. Keeps doing that. Mentoring and coaching relationships. So at least here in Minnesota, there's been a real resurgence of reflective practice groups. So small groups that are either within an organization. So if you have a center-based program or a Head Start, you might have a reflective practice group that meets together within that organization. So you all work there, you're all working in the same type of environment. And you meet with a supervisor or another person who's a reflective coach to just kind of talk about things. How's it going? What are you challenged by? What are you finding really good? What are you feeling about things? Where are the issues lie? What can we talk about together? And it stays within the group. It's very private, but it's very supportive, and it's very an opportunity to really reflect openly with a lot of people who have always kind of already done that. Like they've probably been in your situation and can offer some insight and some support. I saw the heart go up. Some support for how you're feeling. Sometimes just someone to tell it to that isn't going to judge you, right? And it's usually facilitated by someone who's well trained to be able to do that with the participants. Sometimes people do that in organizations face to face, right? So you might do it with your supervisor, and it's called reflective supervision, where they're not there to judge you, they're not there to rate your performance or anything, but they're there to provide that reflective opportunity for you. There's also coaches. So we have those people that come and maybe they're coaching on a particular type of curriculum, or they're coaching on like the state quality rating system, things like that. And so it's a chance for you to reflect with that person about how you're implementing those particular things within your program. And a lot of mental health consultants absolutely do reflective supervision or reflective consultation, where you're there talking. There's groups here, at least in Minnesota, I know, that are cross location. So it might be that there's some people that are mental health consultants in the group. There might be some people that are early childhood educators. There might be some people who work particularly with families, and it just kind of comes from different places. And you come and meet together for once a month for a couple hours, and you share and you talk about things that are going on in your world, and you really kind of there to support one another, help each other understand how you're feeling and what you're doing and why you're doing it and what you might be able to think about next time. A safe space, right, for that. So I think that's really helpful. And if you can find those types of groups, they can be very beneficial, or a true coaching environment, not something that where they're telling you what you need to do, but where they're helping you kind of come up with what you need to do to improve or to continue what you're doing every day. Professional development is also another great way to do reflective practice. How many of you, when you go to a training, you might go to a professional development session, you might come tonight, you might go to a conference, and then you leave and you kind of put the document you got in a folder, or you maybe check it off your list, and then you don't think about it anymore. happens to all of us. I have many a conference book that I've attended some amazing conference and professional development sessions, but I don't do anything with the information once I leave. Or it sits in a folder, and then one day I look at it as I'm cleaning out my folders and I'm like, wow, that would have been really helpful like 6 months ago. That happens to me all the time. So instead, when you get back from your training or you come out of your training like tonight, is you sit down with your journal or a piece of paper or a post-it note and you write down like your top three things that you came away with, right? The one thing you want to implement tomorrow, the one thing you still have questions about, right? You want to learn more about, study more, right? You write those things down so you've got those available to you, right? So you don't forget and you don't let it go. Um, do an educator swap. See if you can swap places with another teacher in a different classroom in a different age group for an hour. Doesn't have to be long. How did it go? What did you see that was different? How did you feel? Right? How did that make you feel? Were you anxious, nervous? Were you like, yes, this group is so much fun? What were you thinking? And why were you thinking that? And what can you do now to help, maybe do something different in your program or with your kids, right? How can you do things differently? And observe others if you can. Doing professional memberships in professional organizations can also give you insight into how other people do things and can also give you opportunities for reflection by reading articles that are published through the organization, attending training sessions, attending conferences again. It'll give you insight into how other perspectives and other perceptions so that you're able to then think, how would I do that? How could I do that different next time? What could I do to make sure that that continues to happen for my kiddos? So your next steps, the very first one is to get out a piece of paper, a notebook, a post-it, an envelope that from your mail, whatever is nearby you, a pen, a marker, a crayon, right? Something to write with. So give me just a second to locate something to write with. And if you already have that something, I want you to write down three things. Okay? The first thing I want you to write down is the one thing that you know you have to share with somebody tomorrow. One thing that you want to share and tell somebody about tomorrow. Doesn't matter who you're going to tell. It could be your significant other, it could be your child, it could be your supervisor, it could be your coworker, a parent, the 2-year-olds. Okay. They're very honest. They will listen. The second thing I want you to write down is who you're going to tell it to. Okay. Who are you going to tell it to? What you're going to tell them, the one thing you want to tell somebody about, who you're going to tell it to. And the last thing you're going to write down is one thing you want to learn more about or practice. Okay. Before we started the session, I mentioned instead of a New Year's resolution, I've learned this new term called New Year's practice. And that's something, so resolutions, I think there's a resolution day or something, sometime in mid-January where it's supposed to be when everyone's done with their resolutions. They are already giving them up. This way, it's a practice. It's something you can continue to do. And if you fail, you get right back up and you continue to practice whatever it is. So what is your one practice for the new year professionally that you're going to do? All right. Well, that is all for today. So I can get to the next slide. We are done. So we cannot see our reflection in running water. It is only in still water that we can see. Love this. It reminds us to stop, pause, take a second, reflect, breathe, think about, pat yourself on the back when things go well, right? reflect and act when things are challenging. You're a continual lifelong learner. So great. So thank you guys all for coming. Remember, certificates will not go out until, or you want to receive them within 48 business hours. So likely by Monday night, they should be in your inbox. They are not an attachment. They are within the email itself. So if you see the email come from us, it's in there. Look in all alternative email folders, not just junk or spam. Look in those promotions, social folders, other folders. There's one actually called other in Outlook. Double check if you have a proprietary email, meaning it's special to a business or it's very unique. Or it's a little bit older, right? A little bit more of the OG email like AOL, Yahoo. Those are very particular and they often will block emails for that are sent in bulk. So you may need to go into your settings and say it's okay for early childhood education at rasmussen.edu to receive emails from them. And then if you don't have your email with your certificate by the end of the night, Monday night, you're welcome to email me at my email address here, and I'd be glad to take a look. So thank you guys so much. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening. Congratulations on kicking off 2025. You've made it 9 days into the new year. And I hope that you have many, many more wonderful days in the year to come. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great night.